Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien. So it's been a bit. It's been cold here. We didn't have heat for a few days, and it's been a lot of work on the farm. So I haven't haven't had much time to put things together, but I have been kind of working on a few behind the scenes. Well, it's a bit of a continuation of one of the other videos I had done on how to do some really quick research concerning MK Ultra, the Department of Defense, the CIA, some of the electronic targeting, some of the technology, and how to actually find the researchers that were doing this back in the day, largely in the, God, goes back, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. But most of the stuff we'll be looking at will be the 50s and 60s and 70s. Um, I also want to introduce a great video today. We'll do a screen share on that. I'll disappear and just show the stuff I want to kind of reveal today with Dr. Fred Bell. So I hadn't really thought about Fred Bell actually in a bit until one of our members came forward and brought out some cool stuff that they found, and they didn't want to come forward. That's okay. So I said, yeah, I don't personally know Fred Bell, Dr. Fred Bell, but Rob Potter did, and it was Fred Bell that really got Rob. Now Rob Potter himself was a contactee as a teenager, but he really got much more involved in the deep, dark, and delicious aspects of the extraterrestrial technology, MK Ultra, weird stuff with Dr. Fred Bell. And Fred Bell passed away several years ago. Fred Bell was, and I told Rob, and Rob agreed. I said Fred was murdered, and Rob Potter himself was just recently passed away. And I also agree that he was finished off. So I got to know Rob through Frank Chili. So Frank Chili knew Rob for many years. They had gone to many conventions. And of course, Rob held a very well-known convention in Mount Shasta. So anyway, so Rob had met Don Thor. Rob, since I really like, and I encourage folks, oh, it's Jesse. I don't know if you can hear Jesse. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I encourage folks to really do a lot more research concerning the old time contactees from the 20s onward. Because I think a lot of the information people are looking for is there with these people who have all since passed. Begin to go back into some of the contactees like Adamski and look at when he was first out in the desert there and he met Orthon and what that was like. And yeah, there were two ships actually. There was a main ship, and then a small ship broke off from that main ship and landed somewhere in the desert. And Adamski was there, and he's like, "That's strange." Then all of a sudden, around a corner comes a young man, and he's wearing interesting clothes. He has like a sash type belt on, and that I wouldn't say it was a spacesuit type stuff. It was almost like some kind of ethnic type clothing looked at that Orthon first has. So he comes around the corner and George Adamski sees him and he's smiling and he says, "Hey," he waves to him and he says, "Hey, come on, meet me." And I think a lot of this is going to be critical for folks. If anything, I don't suspect a messianic blue beam will occur, and here's why. I may be completely wrong, but the vast majority of people have absolutely no interest in UFOs. Now, also the vast majority of people understand that there's life on other planets. Oh yeah, of course, whatever, but they just really don't care because what's the point? Who cares, right? It isn't helping us, right? They're not doing anything, they're not paying your rent, they're not helping you find a job, they're not helping you survive on this planet as a texture. So for your average person, and I mean, and I know people see people, oh, this person has 200,000 subscribers, that's peanuts. When you look at other more mainstream, say even sports or entertainment, even some science pages, you're looking at millions of subscribers, 22 million subscribers. The impact that the disclosure, ET, truth, whatever people call this group now, is minuscule. It's a niche market. It has zero impact on what's actually happening out there in the world. Your average person just says, "You guys are weird. Yeah, there's life on other planets. Who the hell cares? Where the hell are they and why aren't they helping us?" Right? That's your average person. So to have, and the cabal has been playing with a lot of ideas. They've thrown some stuff out there like what will spook people? Will this spook you? No. Will this spook you? Nah, nah. So they're trying to see what kind of an impact they can make. So they really kind of burnt their cookies with COVID. So doing another one of these will be a challenge, another disease thing. They may try that, and I think if they do, it's going to be a real whopper. I think it's going to work really well. Yeah, it's not going to be a joke like the last one. I think it's yeah. So what kind of success would they have amongst the general population with a messianic blue beam? Because most people just don't give a shit. So I don't know. I'm not buying it. The current mainstream disclosure ET community is all excited about glowing ETs and grays and Andromedans and all kinds of better than you off-planet beings that are going to come soon, whatever that means. 2026 is your next big year. Remember, 2023 was the big year. 2024, 2020. We've been hearing about these big years for years, and none of them do shit. I mean, 2025 is the same as 2024. It ain't no different. We're not over yet. So, I mean, I guess, in the next couple of weeks, something exciting could happen. But in my opinion, it ain't shit happening. So the only thing we're seeing is, I said, a little trickle of technology here and there, which is quite intriguing. That's kind of where I put my interest. In December 19th, of course, nothing's going to happen. So, and then I always like their explanation when nothing happens, and they're all, well, it was going to happen, but it didn't, or there's some kind of weird woo-woo interdimensional reason as to why. And well, I sneezed that day, so it must have been the solar flare, some nonsense shit like that. Anyway, we're not going to get involved with them because I think largely, if they were to use these tools, I call them. And I don't mean tool in an insulting way. I mean actually tools, right? Of the deep state, and I don't blame a lot of these characters because they really don't. The deep state always gives you offers you can't refuse. So it can happen to any of us. We've all been through a lot of this stuff already. So when they find certain characters that they think will be very handy to deliver whatever kind of information they're trying to get out, they'll pick those people and they'll make them offers they can't refuse. And they'll give them money, but usually what they'll do is threaten. Now, sometimes for some people, money is all they need, but usually there'll be a threat involved as well to make sure they sweeten the deal. Let's just call it that. So that these people that are delivering these absolutely nonsensical type stories to people, or promoting, really zero evidence, speculative, off the charts, left field, tinfoil hat ideas, again, they're working with them. So it isn't their fault, like I always say. It's they didn't have any choice. So it's basically nonsense. I don't pay attention to any of it. Also, if you are paying attention to that stuff, you're giving away your power. So you're being a follower, not a leader. So I don't give people any, I don't give advice, I don't give anything. I just, playing around with this channel at this point, because I don't work upstairs anymore, neither does my husband, because they lie and it's full of shit. So why they lied to me so many times? I put shit out there that was lies. And anyway, is what it is. So I've had a rebirth, let's say, and I know a lot of the people I've been chatting to. So I'm approachable. I'm not someone you can't talk to. I want to talk to people, and if you have information you want to share, you don't want to come forward, that's okay. I'll share it. So I'm not hiding in the bushes. We ask the tough questions. I think that's really where I want to go with this now is asking the tough questions. So with that, moving forward in the direction that I'm going to go in today, which I always, again, remind people, you try to take some time and dig up some of these old contactees. So when you look at someone like we had done with Frank, Paul Villa, Paul Villa, simple, general person, just like the rest of us, had these amazing contacts, took some pictures, blah, 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 people from Barra Comenese. And Paul had his life screwed up. And all of these guys, largely men, from this time, and I understand why they would have chosen men, the Goldberg paradigm, that still exists. I still have strange people write to me and then to just debate me, like they don't like women or something, and it's always a man usually, and it's really strange, and I'm just like, oh, here we go, but again, the Goldberg paradigm and the unfortunate, and it's not a man-female thing. Both men and women don't trust women. Let's put it. I did this in my class once. We actually did an experiment on campus on the Goldberg paradigm. So it makes sense. And of course, the extraterrestrials understand, the visitors understand this. And so that's why they picked men, because men are more believable. If a woman saw an ET back in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, even now, you're a lunatic, right? I get that all the time. And I kind of just out of curiosity, if I'm on somebody else's channel and I tell my story, um, and there'll be other men like who'll tell their story, and their story is a lot weirder than mine, and everybody's, oh, this guy's been, I love the way he talks. Wow, he's so elegant, blah blah blah. And, but whenever I tell my story, I'm a crazy lunatic off my meds. I should, I'm just some. My aunt was like you, and she ended up in the institution. Ha, it's all that. It could very well be mind control from the cabal itself, bots and agents. That's my suspicion, rather than just some twat. I mean, sometimes it is a twat, but again, they can use, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is the mind control. They can they'll find, this is why it's so important for you not to be a lead, not to be a follower, excuse me, not to be a follower, to be a leader. So if you are the kind of person who is, I don't know, like dealing with issues, right? I mean, we all deal with, I mean, we all have issues. Let's be clear. But I mean, if you're very angry, let's say, very neat, if you're looking for a reason, there's something there this person's very vulnerable at this point. Those are the people that the handlers are going to target. That's what the intelligent agents are going to look for, because they're easy and they're predators. So when a predator is hunting prey, it looks for the weakest in the herd. They're the weakest in the herd. And that's why I tell people, you don't want to be the weakest in the herd, because you're the one who's going to be picked off. They'll work their way up. They can pick off anyone, but generally they'll work their way with the easiest low-hanging fruit, move their way up. So most of us have had experiences that within our own families, where members of our family have been mind controlled and manipulated by, the intelligence agents. And I've seen it, actually. I've seen people like click into new personalities, and that's how you know it's the V2K stuff. So yeah, this is where we are. It's not tinfoil hat. And how we prove this is by doing research, and the research is out there. And I'll read a little bit of that today. Well, we're going to start with Dr. Fred Bell, and some of the work he has been doing, well, had been doing since he's passed away, but not only his own experiences, but the name dropping and all that. So when they're talking about different scientists that have worked in these programs, this is how research happens. I'm actually going to go into, and that's the thing, I mean, if you're an academic, you should be looking for real hard evidence. You shouldn't be just pulling stuff out of the air, and somebody has weird dreams and saying that that's all, evidence. Somebody's dream is not evidence. It doesn't mean it is not evidence. It could very well be legit. This is one of our complaints, is that we haven't got any real solid evidence. We only have our experiences, but experiences are not evidence. They're interesting, and there's stuff that we hold on to because we know after much deliberation that many of our experiences are probably legit, and we share them with each other to say, hey, do you have this? Do you have some kind of corroboration? We understand that when we're doing the corroboration, that there is always the extreme danger of suggestion. And that's a real problem. So for people who truly are psychic, suggestion is our biggest enemy. That's why we don't want a lot of information from people before we do something in the psychic realms, because it will create a sense. It could be suggestion. So for folks who are looking for answers, or someone else to remote view for them or telepath for them, you have to understand that that is going to be largely, because it's not going to be, it's good. It can create suggestion for you. So this could be a negative experience. It may not give you the information that you need, because it isn't coming from you. It's coming from an outside source. Whether or not that outside source is a top level psychic, a telepath, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be suggestion for you. So that's something to keep in mind. And suggestion is extremely powerful. So try to do your own stuff, right? Try to develop first put together your own reality, your own experiences, as this seems likely. So that way there, if you do need to go talk to somebody else, you can give them that information and let them work from there rather than to insert something which you have zero proof whatsoever that it's real or not. So with further ado, let's say, I'm going to pull up, let me get rid of here. I'm going to screen share and pull up this video. There it is. So, there it goes. My computer is a wee bit slow when it comes to sharing, so I'm going to make it full screen. Thank you. Oh, my computer sometimes is so. All right, here it is. This is the interview with Fred Bell on Coast to Coast. There's actually quite a few interviews on Coast to Coast with Fred.
And once again, we hear of another coast-to-coast guest who has sadly passed on. This time, Dr. Fred Bell, UFO contactee, explorer of scientific history.
So I just mentioned that. I know this from talking with Rob Potter. I used to telepath for Rod Potter, and we both said Fred was murdered. Yeah.
Dr. Bell died shortly after being interviewed by Jesse Ventura for an upcoming conspiracy show episode. Frequent guest on Coast to Coast. Just a few months ago, I had an opportunity to talk with him. Here we are with Fred Bell. Fred, what are some of the symptoms of electronic harassment?
Well, there's a bunch of them, and there's also environmental symptoms too. But just a few are sleep deprivation, fatigue, malaise, irritability.
So this is about the type of attacks and targeting that I've had and you, our viewers, have had. So there's science behind, there's technology behind, as you know, all of that. And that technology is not hidden technology. The research is available and has been available for decades. So Fred here himself was a victim of these things. And he's going to kind of give some symptoms of how you know that you're being targeted. And I said, none of this, none of the interview here on Coast to Coast and nothing, and this is just, you know me, because it's YouTube, so neither I nor anyone in the comments or anyone on Coast to Coast, I'm going to just say for them or whatever, or Fred Bell, who's no longer with us, we are not giving medical advice, so YouTube, all of your cabal friends can hear us now. This is for entertainment purposes only. I and anyone associated with Growing Up Alien and our audience and people who are going to be making comments in the comment section and the descriptions, none of us are diagnosing or giving any medical advice. Thank you.
The attention span, daytime fatigue attacks I see on a lot of people, on older people, cataracts, blood changes, circulatory problems, permanent deterioration of the central nervous system. Another one is very common is blurred vision and loss of concentration. Whole body jerks, shaking of the body, heat flashes, artificial fever, shortness of the breath, loss of control of the vocal cords, which is because of that radar flashlight studies, that kind of stuff. Unusual forgetfulness, things like that. And sudden sexual urges, suicidal, homicidal thoughts, panic attacks. And the biggest one that I see of all in the people I do is some form of depression and extreme paranoia. I see that. And sometimes in the environment around a targeted person, some people out there I know are going to relate to this, is a stoppage of power to appliances, manipulation of appliance settings, temporary failures that fix themselves, movements of objects that's off and off the shelf, under the floor causing breakage, precision and manipulation of switches and controls, premature failure of appliances and computer failures and errors. That's just some of the stuff that goes on. I mean, it does affect the environment, especially if they're doing the millimeter wave stuff, which is a common delivery system.
What is confusion weaponry, Fred?
Well, confusion weaponry it was basically brought about several years ago, where we were using thoughts to, frequencies that mess up the thinking system of the body. Okay, this was the original, how it really all started. Later on, it got, there were different devices developed that were neurostimulators from a distance. I remember in the very beginning, they were developing devices where they had a control, an implant in your head, and then it was, you would see the effect of it in your head. Later on, it became remote control, and now it's done at a difference, almost on a quantum level. And it's basically impulses that are sent to the body that cause that person to go into some confusion state. A good example of that was just recently. That lady that was on the news the other night, a little blonde girl. You might have seen this. It was about a week ago.
Oh, the one who had they not a stroke, but they think something happened to her.
Yeah.
She had some kind of severe migraine, they said.
Yeah, and she never ever had a migraine before. That to me is probably they targeted her just to see what would happen while she was on the air, because there were no symptoms afterwards. There was no damage to her body, no neurological damage or any even symptoms. That's confusion weaponry, and that was a good example. I was really surprised to see them pull that out of their hat and immediately, apply that so quickly, but it did. I mean,
that was one of the strangest videos I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, the founder, the term confusion weaponry came originally from Dr. Ross Ade, who was formerly of the Brain Research Center at the University of...
Yeah, I'm actually going to show you. So this is how you would do that. So we mentioned Dr. Ross Ade, and that fellow, you can simply do a Google Scholar search and discover some of the very controversial research that he was doing. Some of this originated out of Russia. Now, he wasn't part of that, nothing to do with Russia, but that was when the CIA began to jump on board and see what they could do with mind control, as a weaponized mind control.
Southern California. And he worked at Loma Linda, and he was worked on the Pandora project, which is part of that stuff that was with the
So we mentioned there again, you can look that up. It's called the Pandora project. Yeah, that's real, and you can find that on government Department of Defense. Readily Google. You don't have to go digging. It is right there.
Bombarding us, and it was his definition was specific behavior modifications of electromagnetic means, and the chemical part of it. Now there's chemistry involved here, and that causes what I call a calcium efflux. Okay, and this is usually from the microwave side of it, and when this calcium efflux happens, it throws out the blood pressure rates, and because remember, calcium ions are necessary to make the heart beat through the atriums of the heart. If you interfere with that, you start getting voids in the brain, lack of oxygen in the brain, and so the blood pressure starts to go up or down, and that causes a panic attack. So you can see how that goes into a panic attack. And if it goes into a panic attack, then that person's going to run down. If it happens more than once, then they're going to run to Big Pharma for some drugs, some SSRI drugs or something, which brings the drug industry on board. But I mean, that's the kind of stuff that goes on. And this was going back. This goes back to the '60s. Okay, and then in the '80s, Dr. Ade demonstrated how 147 megahertz field with a power level of just 0.8.
If you look at the times he's talking about there, the '60s into the '80s and '90s, obviously using this technology, that's about the time you started to see an increase in mental health type things and ADHD and all that kind of different behavioral situations. I have to be careful, like it's YouTube, but I'm just throwing it out there. You know my code language. This was the beginning of all the interest in these psychotropic drugs that people take. And yeah, anyway.
Kilowatts per square centimeter causes this calcium influx. And then what happens is they used 147 megahertz carrier, and they modulate it down to 6 to 20 hertz, which is ELF. And the heart likes to beat, I think the heart beats somewhere around 8.1 or 8.2 hertz. So, and it's very easy to overpower. The human body only generates about 20 millivolts, average person in the brain, sending it down through the central nervous system, which then has to be distributed through all the electrical factions of the body, which is everything. So it doesn't take much with a small millimeter beam to interfere with that delicate process of the human being. And because when you go to that millimeter wavelength stuff, which is considered between 30 and 300 gigahertz, that makes it pencil beam like laser-like technology that once a person's zeroed in on from all of these things we've been discussing.
Yeah, and I showed that in that other video from a previous, actually it's in the shorts, but it was in that college class with a professor. piggybacks a song, some music on top of these lasers. And when they meet, that's when you hear it. So they can put it right into your head. They were able to move that just from targeting one person to targeting groups.
Voice and speech patterns and listening to them on the computer and the phone and all of that. It's no problem to zero in with 2 pencil beams on that person and do all kinds of disruptive things, including introduce a audio component between the 2 small millimeter wavelength beams.
So these are the people that are not all, but most of your channelers, and even a lot of the contactees from the 80s and 90s, and I would say certainly today as well, who think they are in contact, but they are not. Especially those people who have really shockingly good contact, where they're hearing voices in their heads and all that. Yeah, well, they're hearing voices in their heads. It isn't the ET. Well, it could be, but it isn't the one they think it is. And while those of us who are not V2K are aware of some of this tech, not everyone is, and this was part of the discrediting campaign that the CIA has been doing for many, many decades. Like I said, it was, it began again, even Adamski and Menger and all those people, they were already being attacked then, but they didn't have the tech at that time. When you get into the 80s and 90s, now they have the technology that Dr. Bell is describing here, and that you can see in the research itself by these different, usually psychologists, that were working not only on their own terms with universities, but also with Department of Defense and the CIA, the MK Ultra. In the 80s and the 90s, this stuff was was very quite widespread and used to create contact. And it was easy to do then because you didn't have the physical contact anymore. These were the people, and you still hear them today, who were in contact, and they'll always say, with Pleiadians, and they're non-physical Pleiadians. Like, what the hell is a dead Pleiadian? They're always in contact with some kind of, I always tell people this is a red flag. When you hear people talking to high dimensional beings, Arcturians, non-physical Pleiadians, not from any system, higher self, all this kind of stuff. And when it is very impressive, let's just say, that's your, not 100%, but largely, and I haven't done any research, so I can't give you percentages of how many people are under the V2K, but large percentage of these people who are stepping forward now, contacting these supposed ETs, are not. And this is the problem with all of this, I have a vision, or I'm being told this or that, and I'm working with the white hats, and like, have you physically met a white hat? No. Well, there you go. How do you know you're working with the white hats? And they're giving this really detailed, shockingly accurate, over and over again, content, which never actually pans out, number one, but that is most likely from the intelligence agencies, and it's there to discredit the movement of real contactees and real social technological advancement proponents. So ever since, forever, the intelligence agencies have been on a very powerful discrediting campaign to make all of the people in this community look like a bunch of twats. So if they can, and you're seeing that being done right now, control a lot of these people and they will have a similar narrative that will help to discredit all attempts at disclosure, which is obviously the goal of the intelligence agencies and the cabal. So that is what they're doing now, and they're using this technology. I mean, now the technology is, it's just mind-numbing how good it is.
An audio component, people didn't hear themselves. Somebody's talking in their head, and some of the people I've talked to say one lady specific, I remember, she said I could hear it was in the control room. I mean, I could hear people in the background talking, and these voices are in my head, and this was very unusual. And then this is the kind of stuff that we run across, and not just one case, a lot. You know, if it was just one, I'd shine it on.
Whatever happened to the weaponry of the audio weaponry, where they could turn it on and people would just go down to their knees? It would hurt them, their ears.
That's very much alive right now. They use it on crowd control. That's considered the friendlier form of crowd control.
I mean, I haven't seen it used in the Middle East, so they don't have it, right?
Well, they make it right down here in San Diego, so one of the companies does. Yes, they will.
Well, I mean, we have it. I don't think.
Oh yeah, we have it.
Yeah,
I've seen it. It's on a big trailer. It has a big antenna, and it works on heat. What happens is it goes to like 1/10 of an inch under the skin, and so it starts getting really hot. And so this audio beam puts out this heat on the body, and they get so hot they just burn up and they just start freaking out. It's not so much a high volume. Yeah, there's a screeching to it, but there's a heat faction that they use on it.
So, and the thing, like he's talking about there, and they have used it on crowd control all over the world, but we understand what they're doing, so you can feel it when it's coming, when they're targeting you with one of these beams. You feel it coming in your body. We're familiar with it because we've been targeted our whole life, so we know what they're doing. But if you take your average person, all of this stuff looks like magic to your average person. And when you're talking about the technology and the quantum physics and all that, right, to a person who's not familiar with what we are familiar with, they get wide-eyed and they look at you like, wow, this is what is going on here. Well, we understand that this is simply technology, and it's the way reality works. So when they deploy these kinds of weapons onto the general public, your average person has absolutely no idea. I think they're going crazy. They have no idea what's happening. So it's extremely effective.
Tell me about what they're doing with satellites, Fred.
Okay. Where do you want me to start? We started off with the Corona project a long time ago. They were launched from Vandenberg, and that was spy stuff. And then later on, we came along with the Misty series, which then became like the Keyhole satellites. The big launch when NASA got involved was in '91 with the STS-38. Then we have the Iridium satellite, and we had several other satellite companies go up there. And these satellites, one friend of mine started Iridium. I know the guy very well, and he's retired now. But these satellites not only do things down here on Earth, these satellites, because of different countries being involved, they'll spy on themselves. They got satellites up there that cruise around and go from one satellite to another, monitoring the frequencies that it's putting out and where it's transmitting it to. Yeah, but what they do, I mean, the first time it came to public scrutiny was, I forget the incident. It's the vein in my head, but I remember what happened.
Was it a Chinese satellite that went down, or was it a Russian one?
Well, it might have been a Chinese one, but the first time that we actually saw the RF stuff was getting some birds off a runway at an airport. They beamed in on a bunch of pigeons, and then they admitted that that's what caused these birds to get out of there because they were having a problem. Now, as far as the Chinese satellites, I talked to the director at JPL a while back, and I asked him about when they were launching in North Korea, the satellites, actually North Korea, if we were, they get up about a quarter of a mile and blow up. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I asked him if Kim Jong-il's satellites were doing, we were blowing them out of the sky with our Star Wars technology, and the guy he wouldn't answer that phone. So on the phone, so but the guy that started Iridium is the guy that hooked me up to the guy at JPL. I'm not mentioning names, so he went and got on a secure phone. And I told him, don't BS me. I've been down this road before, and I'm with a so-and-so person who actually got him on the phone. So he admitted, yeah, they have a technology. Well, it's pretty simple now, but they knock things out of the sky with EMP pulses. I don't think they lasered those rockets. I think they knocked down guidance systems.
This sounds like old Tesla technology, doesn't it?
Yeah, Tesla was the very first guy. Remember, 47, he had the Tesla something or other. I forget what it was called. But then they came in and they took away from him, they confiscated his papers. And one of the Tesla generators
Yeah, so as folks probably know, when Tesla passed away in New York, the government went in and took all of his stuff, all of his research.
One of the Tesla things that he made was the beginning of that actual science. It's come a long way now, but they can not only use it on humans, they can use it on animals, they can use it on a computer, they can use it on your car. Of course, you probably know the Highway Patrol around here in California is developing devices to shut down, electronic ignitions in cars when they're chasing.
So then, yeah, we know this, right? And this is the danger of what we're trying to get across to people. And I think the saddest thing about not only Americans, but many parts of the world, I'm sure, is the lack of real understanding of science. And I mean science, not the fake science people talk about. I mean like the technology type science that we're being told here and in other places. So if they, in this, I mean, words cannot express the extreme danger that we're in right now. If the cabal chooses to do basically anything with digital ID, with lockdowns, with 15-minute cities, with literally anything, they have the technology, not only to kill you outright, but they have the technology to stop you in your tracks and take everything from you. And it's done remotely. It's not a very complicated thing. And Fred is explaining here how this works. And again, you can pick each part of research that you're interested in and learn more about how the technology works, specifically using different resources like Google Scholar, which is available to everyone. And yeah, people in this world are just not aware of the danger we're in. And as James Martinez says, it's an extinction level event. It's a complete enslavement extinction level event that we can be facing. And none of these people who are talking to, white hats and ETs and blah, blah, and whatever are addressing, and the ETs or whatever, they're not addressing the reality of what the enemy, who is still in power, is doing and is capable of doing. They can stop you in your tracks and put you in the Stone Age unless you comply. So if you want heat, if you want a car, if you want money, if you want to eat, if you want to do anything, they're going to force people to comply. Not only that, if you don't comply and they don't like you, they can kill you. As we all know, in this arena, it isn't simply even a matter of running into the woods. They can find you. They have extraterrestrial technology. And this is some of the questions that none of these mainstream ET disclosure people are ever answering. Why is this technology not being taken out by these supposedly benevolent extraterrestrials? How many times are we being told by these people that there's benevolent extraterrestrials that are trying to help us? You can do nothing as long as the cabal is in power and as long as the cabal's technology is still operational. But no one is answering these questions. Oh, they're answering them by telling you that we need to be like a virgin in the forest looking for a unicorn. That's complete nonsense. And this is what is just what really grinds my gears. These people are so out of touch with the reality. And that's how you know they're frauds. Simple.
Make car chases safer and all that kind of stuff. So the technology is blossoming.
Well, like he just said, he says, this is how they're going to sell it to you. This is how they've always sold it to you. Well, if we can stop and take your car down instantly, turn off the engine, turn off the electrical system, that'll make that'll make you safer. Grandma won't get hit anymore. All the bad guys get captured. Yeah, well, it isn't the technology. It's who's controlling it. And as we know, the ones controlling the technology are the enemy. So
really is.
Is it good or bad?
Well, if you catch, the other day I saw this horrible crash on a night chase here in California. I know you're back in the Midwest.
No, I'm in LA right now.
Oh, are you? Okay, yeah. Cool. I thought you were back east in the Midwest. So anyway, this guy in the crash, he broadsided this poor lady, and the cops shouldn't have been chasing him that close. I mean, they were pushing him, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. He broadsided this lady, and it broke her neck and her back. And the cops didn't even, the ambulance came, the person was dead in the water. They didn't move out of their car, but the person did live because it was on Channel 5 the next day. And so eliminate that kind of ridiculousness. they could have followed this bad guy in a helicopter, you know, and got him eventually that way. So from that point, the technology is good. But unfortunately, with
and he's right. It's not the technology. The technology is good. The problem is no one who is using this technology is using it for good. And this is, again, something that the visitors have been saying way back in the 20s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s in the contacts. That this technology can be very, very, very dangerous. And it's in the cat's out of the bag. So anyone who tells you the story about, well, you can't have until the humans and the Terrans, you know, find God and Jesus and heal themselves or whatever kind of bullshit you're being told. You know, they have to be the virgin in the forest looking for the unicorn story. Same thing. That's baloney. We have all of the technology now. So any argument that talks about you have to raise your vibration to get the ET tech is an idiot. The technology is there. Not only is it there, you can see it. You can see the patents. They're actually available for the public to read how they're actually created. Now, some of the secret sauce may not be there, but it's all there in the open and it's being used. So we're already at a point of no return where, in fact, all of this technology has been adapted and reverse engineered and augmented by the bad guys. There are no good guys in any position on this planet, in any government, in any military, in any police, in any law. It is all, you are the enemy. Everything they have is to stop you. It isn't to save you. They'll do that. That's part of the psyop. That is all part of their psyop. Hey, here's some great tech, and it's gonna save grandma, you know, and that's they don't give a crap. They're selling grandma off planet. It's like the people that are running this planet are the ones that are running it as a farm. They're the ones that are selling you off planet for, you know, for food, for slaves, for sex slaves, for whatever the hell somebody wants, for lab rats. That's what they're doing. And people need to understand this, because these people who are still selling you off planet, that is what you said, that is what one of the resources that Earth is used for, because there's a lot of ETs, and I mean a lot, who want this stuff. So that's where we stand.
Government programs in place, the depopulation policies in place, you know, trying to get rid of people, the deceit that's going on, they're going to use it for a bad reason. You know, bad reasons. And that's where...
I've always wondered, though, Fred, let me ask you this. I mean, a guy robs a bank. So you legitimately know he did this, right?
Yeah.
Gets in his car, and now he's got this high-speed police chase down the freeway.
Right.
And, you know, TV cameras are there, so you're watching the thing live.
Right.
What would be wrong, this is kind of a rhetorical question, if they had a missile system in a helicopter and blew the guy up?
Yeah, that would be cool.
I mean, he's a bank robber. Maybe he shot someone. I mean, why screw around and let him drive through the freeways, maybe hit someone and kill somebody else? Why don't you just go there and blow him up?
Yeah, or just disable the whole vehicle. That's a great idea.
I mean, somebody will say, oh, my God, what if he's not guilty? What if it's this? Come on.
Well, you know,
these would be with obvious cases.
Yeah, I don't think that the police departments have the budgets for that yet, but there's some really keen infrared laser systems now that you can aim. The military has them. You can look through like a finder scope, and they could just put, with a helicopter, they could just go right above that guy's car and just cut a nice little beam right through the top of his car and go right into him and just get
him. But you know the reason why?
That's the here and now.
But the reason why nobody wants this? Because they don't trust government.
Well, no, who does?
Well, and then Derp, this was many, many years ago, but this interview, but that's the problem. And that's the dichotomy. That's the between the rock and the hard place where we are right now, in that, you know, ultimately we all know that we're the enemy. The people, the billions of people on this planet are the enemy. They're the livestock, they're the chattel. They're the ones that need to be controlled. So everything that's done is meant to control and suppress and shut up the cows, which is what we are, from, you know, making too much trouble. And I suspect part of what's being done in the present discrediting campaign is possibly to shut us up. So if they can use a messianic blue beam to, and I call it using the Judas horses. So these people, these tools that they're using now are the Judas horses and what they're going to do. Because they're, what's the best way? An old Irish saying, it's the wedge from itself that splits the yoke. If we can get simply by using mind control, the ET disclosure community to go against itself, to lead itself to doom, what better way to do that? So that is what I suspect is being done at the moment, where they are using us against us. Because your average person, as I'd mentioned, doesn't give a crap about ET stuff. But if you want to get rid of, like literally, a bunch of ET people who are into all this stuff, who are the ones that are, shooting holes in the dam, who are the ones that are causing a lot of trouble and a lot of headaches for the cabal. Simply, if they could get rid of us, it could be very much business as usual for them. So it could make sense that they could simply target in a blue beam event all the ET people. And you've seen that already, actually, in many of these sci-fi movies, including Independence Day, where they only have to get the Judas horses to run back to the corral, so to speak, and have the rest of the horses follow. That is what I suspect they're doing now.
I mean, some of these things could be used for legitimate purposes, for helping, for ensuring safety.
Sorry, dude. Guess what? There are no legitimate purposes. If there are any legitimate purposes, it's just a psyop to keep everybody believing that there's legitimate purposes.
Public, but people just don't trust government.
No, they don't. I mean, do you?
No, I don't.
I haven't.
I don't. I want to.
Yeah, well,
I want to more than you can imagine.
Well,
but I don't.
You mentioned in the very beginning of the show about blue beam and it's so, that project is so alive if you know how to see it. And the first thing they did, the government did, was take God out of the Constitution, God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, God off the currency. All of that's gone. It's just part of it. It's an erosion. It's fascism. That's what's going on, and you have to trust in the fact that your government will lie to you. I mean,
just today,
yeah,
the Supreme Court ruled that parents cannot sue big pharmaceutical companies over the vaccines.
Yeah,
I mean, here we go again. I mean, the little guy gets the short end of the stick.
Yeah, and I'm reading this book by this, forget his name, but he's over in England. He came over here. You probably had him on your show.
Andrew Wakefield.
Yeah,
I just had him on a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, my company Paradigm, we have worked with kids that are dyslexic and harmed by vaccines. I remember when I got vaccinated, when I was a kid, I got stomach cramps, okay, and that's a huge stomach cramp. I would lay down, a few weeks afterwards, I lay down and lay in tremendous pain. I'll never forget this. Well, colonitis is one of the side effects of these vaccines.
Yeah, so they get,
and I had that when I was a kid, so it was happening not just recently, it was happening back then.
Whoops.
Now I think because we have, a better communication system, I think people are...
Oh, there it is. All right. My computer is so strange. But yeah, well, there you go. I mean, I think that answers a lot of, well, at least it gives you some direction as to where to go. So another thing I want to pull up here is, just a quick throw. We'll go from there. Here we go. Oops. Pull this up. I'll break this up into a couple of, oops, not that one. There we go. My slow computer. Oops, let me copy that. Then you got Jesse talking. That's always fun. All right. Pull up another. There. here is one of the projects. So I'm going to just share this one here because we're getting too long for this one. Then we'll go through some of the other ones. And another, be great to hear from you, as I said, on these podcasts concerning these and things you've been finding. But here we go. Share screen. Okay. I just did this on this is archives from the government, from a university, actually, not from the government. But they're releasing all these pieces of information, and they've been there anyway. So this is the National Security Archives. So DARPA used to be ARPA, ARPA back in the day. And here we go. Justification memorandum for Project Pandora, top secret. And here is the document from October 15th, 1965. And what is now DARPA was then ARPA, ARPA. This is a special research program, codename Project Pandora, legit. And if you go on Wikipedia, it'll say, well, and they'll say a lot of this stuff is speculation. It is not speculation. That is baloney. And it's always good to collect a couple of these things, and I'll put them in the descriptions. Then you can share them with people who don't believe you or who have a hard time understanding this stuff. It's just, the research is just in front of your face. I tell people this all the time. It's everywhere. It's not hidden. It's never been hidden. So it's like, you just aren't looking for it, because you're watching CNN or whatever the hell. The research is right there. And I'm not doing anything magical. For those who don't know, I have a PhD. And I taught research for 19 years. But you don't have to. I'm just doing stuff, Google stuff. I'm not doing anything special behind closed doors, magical research. This is basic, like literally this took me less than 50 seconds to find. That's the kind of research I'm showing you right now. So in this memorandum introducing the project, Supervisor Richard Cesaro explains that the U.S. Embassy in Moscow has been radiated with low-level electromagnetic beams on a continuous basis for a number of years. In response, the White House has ordered the U.S. Intelligence Board to assume that intensive investigative research be conducted within the State Department, CIA, and DOD to attempt to determine what the actual threat is and to stop it. The code name for the multi-agency efforts is TUMS, Technically Unidentified Moscow Signal. But Cesaro advises the ARPA contribution is known as Project Pandora and will address one of the potential threats, that of radiation effects on man. Cesaro informs the other agencies participating in the project that a program has been outlined to irradiate a group of primates under carefully controlled conditions, simulating the dosages and complex modulation of the threat. Cesaro adds that the trained primates will be carefully observed under varying and controlled irradiated conditions in an attempt to determine if any changes in their behavior and blah, blah, blah. So there you go. Here's some of the sources, FOIA request, and there it is. So Advanced Research Projects Agency. So has been, there it is, unclassified, 1977. It's originally from 1965. Memorandum, justification memorandum for Project Pandora. There it is. There you go. First, yeah. So they discovered that the American embassy in Moscow had been undergoing some of these things. And of course, you have things like Havana syndrome, which was used later on. Some of these, you can actually, I've traced a few back where there were obvious Nuremberg Code violations. Here's discussion. Says, number one, the Air Force will select, procure, and monitor the electromagnetic generating equipment and control the environment thus produced. So there you go. So there'll be patents for some of this stuff as well. This is from George Washington University. Simple. Google search. But I'm just going to leave that one. And we'll look at some other ones in coming episodes. But like I said, please share your findings. There's so much information out there. It is mind-numbing. And I've already mentioned this the last time. MK Ultra is not a tinfoil hat situation. It is not speculation. It is actually mentioned in many thousands If you have, a lifetime to read this shit, thousands of documents now that have been declassified from the archive. They're in the archives now. MK Ultra is mentioned in them. So, I mean, it's just mind. I mean, there's lawsuits that are coming out. Yeah. So we'll continue with this. Like I said, definitely check out, and that's how you play with this stuff. So when Dr. Bell mentioned Project Pandora, when you're watching these things, write them down. It grinds my gears. It's not always, but sometimes when folks find great information, you really want to have somewhere in the descriptions or something links to this information so people can go and find the primary source material so that we're not always relying on secondary sources. That has always been sometimes there's no choice, but really find and locate the primary source material. And I will put some of that here, like Dr. Ade, that guy who's a really total sketch individual, and as well as some other CIA. It's mostly psychology, actually, because that's what CIA was particularly curious about, was how they could not only enhance or collect or weaponize psionics, right, psychic abilities, but how they could influence people, right? And again, this is not the monster under your bed. And the little children, of course, who used to talk about things like monsters under their bed really had monsters. When they used to, you know yourself, probably growing up, how you have an amazing imagination and you sleepwalk. That's why you woke up in the middle of a field. No, you were abducted. This is the psyop. This is what you're seeing right now. And you can walk back through your own experiences and other people's experiences to the discrediting psyop that happened very easily back in the day by your imagination and blah, blah, blah. So what they're doing now, because a lot of the cats are out of the bag, is trying to implode the ET disclosure movement from within. So that's where we are. Fun times. Here's what it is. So as always, we will see you upstairs.